An old person's favorite pastime is to tell young people to stop complaining and work harder. Now, there is some young people that may not work hard enough to get to where they want to be. But boomers had it much easier when it comes to affording goods than we did of any generation, such as millennials, Gen Z, and inevitably Gen Alpha. And this was all planned from the start. It may have been accidental, it may have just been lucky, but from the start, boomers had it easier than we do. I'm going to tell you exactly how boomers control the world, not just the US economy, and intentionally use it to keep us not able to afford anything and keep us constantly struggling so that they can maintain their status as wealthy. Number one, boomers are the largest active political voting bloc. Now, as of 2020, the number has changed very slightly, but they are still the most active voters that we have in the United States. They are out there on the polls day in, day out, not just in national, but also local elections. Now, everyone should be involved in activism no matter what, but boomers take this to the next level. Boomers need to be involved in activism. They have some sort of innate sensation, this feeling that they just cannot avoid, and it makes them go to the polls. And there's a reason for that. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But since they're the most politically active voting bloc, I want you to guess who they're going to vote for. Are they going to vote for forward-thinking figures that are going to help the youth of this nation? Or are they going to help some people who are going to ensure that their 401k stays high and their home doesn't go down in value? I know exactly which one I'd vote for if I was a boomer. So it's not necessarily all their fault, but it is designed in a way that they are the only ones who will benefit from anything of the sort when it comes to political power, and not just political power, but voting rights and resources in general. Boomers are always going to be far more successful than Gen Z or Gen Alpha, at least for now, while they're still here, because they just are more active in the polls. If we were more active in polls, then we'd actually get some representation in our government, which is what everybody wants. It's what we fought for in the American Revolution. We were getting taxed without proper representation, and we want to change that, which is a sentiment I can vouch for, and I feel the same way. I want taxation with representation, not taxation without representation. But right now, we're all getting taxed without representation in the younger generations. Boomers came during a great time, during the baby boom, when a lot of people were having kids post-World War II. They came of an age during not World War II, World War I. They came of age during industrial expansion and prioritized low taxes and high investment returns. They came of age at a great time. Not just a great time for them, but a great time for anyone wanting to make some money. Because now, all of a sudden, it didn't require just blood, sweat, tears to make some little equity here and there. Now, to make money, you could actually start a profitable business as a factory owner, or you could invest in assets as a factory owner. That was a good business model back then. Now, of course, they had their own boom and bust like the 1920s, but that was a little bit before their time. Boomers were not alive during that time. So they've never had a major depression such as that. Yes, the 2008 financial crisis definitely affected boomers because they were the primary homeowners, but it mainly affected millennials because they were the ones who didn't have the assets to begin with to gamble nor parlay and even play in that market game that they were doing. All that they were able to do was watch on the sidelines and watch as the affordability of their potential home just became non-existent. They're not able to afford homes any longer because of the problems that boomers had created, which was them betting on the housing market and them predicting that it's always going to go up forever. Boy, that didn't pay off. That's a whole different topic for a whole different video, but they came of an age and prioritize low taxes and high investment returns. They don't want to be taxed, and they want a lot of money on their assets, which is what everybody wants. But since they are the largest political voting bloc, they got to take advantage of this before anybody else did. Now, with that being said, because of the wealth that the boomers accumulated, it's been studied that richer people technically live, well, not technically, richer people typically live longer than poorer people. And there's a whole bunch of socioeconomic reasons, and there's a billion reasons you could talk to and attest to why that is. Regardless, the boomers were not absent from this trend. The richer people got, the longer people lived. So the richest of the rich boomers got to live longer. Do you know what living longer means? Staying in power longer. The longer they could stay in power, the more money they could make, and the more their lineage could prosper from the, frankly, lack of representation that everyone else had. Their lineage is always going to prosper. The rich are going to stay rich, and the rich are going to stay in power because they're living longer. If there's less turnover rate, there's less people to come in, make things new, make things better. So they just want things to go the same as they always have. They want to make high investments, and they want to get high investment returns, and they want no taxes. Lastly, 65 plus voters are 7 times more likely to vote locally than ages 18 through 34. Like I said, they are more politically active. This actually started during Vietnam and the Civil Rights Movement. Boomers were very remarkably activist because of these things that they saw that were injustices. You know, the war that seemed like it had no purpose being where we were. And to be fair, yes, that was the first time the American public had kind of been introduced to like proxy wars. And for good reason, we do not like proxy wars. They don't really affect Americans that much. It's mainly just a power grab for the most part. So back then, when they were just, as young as the generation now, these proxy wars, they were like, we don't like this. So we're going to go out, we're going to protest, and we're going to vote against this type of stuff, which is very admirable. I think it's a good thing. We should be protesting things we don't agree with. We should be protesting things we don't feel like are right. So proxy wars were the first thing that they were protesting. Now, after the proxy wars, after the Vietnam protests were done, what they wanted to do instead was protest for civil rights, which, again, active, good cause. I think that's a good thing. But now that taught them that if they go out and they vote and they yell, scream in the streets, things will change. So that has affected them ever since. Things do change when you protest and when you vote. So from a very young age, they were taught that if we go out, we vote, we can actually impact the world we live in. Now, I don't know about you, but I've honestly never felt that sentiment. But someone from 18 to 25 during those times definitely did. They can make a change, and they felt like they had power. They were represented. So that's what they did. And it's never been farther from the truth for the people growing up in this current generation. That's not where we are right now. That is not who we are right now. We don't have the representation they had. We don't have the activist ability that they had. We don't have anything of the sort that they had when they were growing up. We don't have that representation. We don't have anything to make sure that we are represented not only fairly, but truthfully and without impunity. They have the ability to change things. And from a young age, that does affect you. If you think you have the ability to change things, you're going to try to change things. Right now, I don't know if I have the ability to change anything. I don't know if my vote matters. But the boomers from back then learned that, yes, their vote did matter. And what they had to say was important. And what they fought for, they earned. They believed in it. And they made a change. We don't have the same sentiment as the younger generation. We don't. We don't have the same representation. We don't have the same vibe. We don't go out. We don't protest as much. We're not benefiting from what they got to benefit from. In conclusion, boomers have been politically active since the Vietnam War and understand the importance of activism far earlier than any other generation. They use this to influence the government and to hold more power and wealth than any other generation in history. They want to roll over debt to the next generation and the next because let's say you want to fix the housing affordability crisis. What has to happen to homes in the US? They need to get cheaper. If homes get cheaper in the US, their assets go down. The stock market, 90% of the stock market is owned by the top 10%. Maybe that should change because it didn't used to be like that. It was like 50% by the top 10% was owned during their time growing up. It is not that. And if they fix that, stocks need to go down. People need to be active in the markets. They don't want that. They want all the wealth to themselves. They want to make sure their 401k stays high. They want to make sure their property value stays high. They do not want to sacrifice anything for the generation that grows up now. This is how they keep you poor. This is how they make sure they are always in power and their lineage are the only ones that ever benefit. You like, subscribe. Thanks for watching. See ya.